Welcome in to today's edition of USL Pro Weekly. My name's Nicholas Murray and I'm very pleased to be joined by USL Professional League's Director of Operations, David Wagner. David, some really interesting action in USL Pro this weekend. Let's start off on Sunday. Orlando City making their first appearance of the season and taking a nice 3-1 victory against Phoenix FC at Sun Devil Soccer Stadium. What did you take away from the performance from both sides?
It was obviously a big game, second home game for Phoenix of the season. It started off pretty even, and Orlando goes down 1-0 quite early on sort of a mental mistake, something that could happen at the beginning of the season. Bad back pass, Phoenix takes advantage of it and really gets the energy going. But then Orlando really turns it around, headed into the end of the first half, going into the second.
We saw the impact as well from some of the Sporting Kansas City players. Dom Dwyer obviously getting a goal, but I think a very good performance by Kevin Molino, last year's USL Pro MVP. He earns USL Pro Player of the Week awards for his goal and assist.
Yeah, it was definitely a standout performance. To your first point with the Kansas City players, one player that doesn't always get all the the sexy highlights in the mention, but you look at a guy like John Kempen, what he did the other day, really solid in the back, obviously lucky to go down 1-0 early, not much he could do about it, but came up huge, especially a really big save right at the end that he made there, got down, palmed it away. I thought he was, for his age, being a young guy, I thought he was really commanding out of the back, and I was really impressed with his performance. To the other guys, I know Dom Dwyer's a guy we talked about a lot on the podcast. I thought a really strong performance with him. Obviously had the goal, should have had two. Looked really dangerous the whole game, but just the whole Loney cast. But obviously everybody else too. Guys got Long Tan coming off the bench and getting the goal, and obviously Kevin Molino as well. Enough said for his performance.
Now, also on Sunday, we had first interleague game of the season. Portland Timbers reserves took a 2-1 win against VSI Tampa Bay. Wraps up VSI's first road trip of the season. What have we learnt about this team in their first 3 games?
Yeah, obviously three different games, but I think there was a high level of performance and consistency that you could see throughout. I mean, we talked about it before, and to go back to the previous podcast, it's not your average expansion team, and they really aren't. They really have an experienced core, and you could already start to tell that they're really gelling well. I thought the first half of the Portland game, he played really, really well. I thought Portland came out flat, and VSI was dangerous. I thought they forced turnovers. They possessed the ball well at times, and they looked dangerous. And then, obviously, in the second half, they get the one goal to pull it back, and unlucky, maybe not to get another one. They probably should have, if they saw it again, they would have liked to maybe take advantage of some of the chances that they had in the first and capitalized on them.
Absolutely. First game of the weekend was Pittsburgh against Richmond. It ended scoreless, but to me, it was actually a pretty entertaining game and a very positive performance by Pittsburgh on the road. That's got to be nice for them, especially going into their opening game at Highmark Stadium this Saturday against the Harrisburg City Islanders.
Yeah, I completely agree, and you and I were exchanged a couple messages after the game, and I thought that I stated last week on the podcast that what I wanted to see from each team, and my questions for Pittsburgh were, were they going to be firm in the back, how they were going to possess in the midfield, and I think they came out and answered those questions. I thought they were really solid in the back, but one point that you made after the game too is that they pressed well. Yeah. Forced the turnovers. They didn't let Richmond get comfortable at all in that game and really kind of took the issue to them. And obviously they were unlucky not to get a goal to, I think it was Kinney, right? Who smacked one right off the bar too.
And that would have been an absolute highlight reel finish and a great goal to open the season for them. I thought Kinney had a great game, Rich Costanzo as well. And then Mike Seth and Seth Cedabaka, both putting in solid performances as well. That front six for the Riverhounds kind of taking a little bit of pressure off the back line because they were doing some really good defending from the front.
I think so. I think the midfield and then up top they pressured really well. It's still going to come to see who's going to score those goals. Is going to be is Johnny going to score the goals this season?
Arteaga,
Who's going to put it in the back of the net will still be the question. Obviously, we didn't see in week 1 because nobody had any goals. But from what I saw week 1, defensively, composure, their shape, it was very impressive. On the flip side, I thought that Richmond, obviously, being their first game, being at home, they probably expected a better result. They still have a solid core there. great experience. They have the 4 players on loan from DC that made an appearance in the game.
And they have some players missing still. They weren't quite at full strength, so I think we might expect to see something a little more positive and a little more energetic against Charleston this upcoming Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a big rivalry game. It goes back a long, long time in USL. They don't like each other very much, and so I think that'll carry over, and I think they're going to step themselves up. I know Lee will have them at a higher level come next weekend.
Well, that's all for this week's edition of USL Pro Weekly. Thanks very much for joining us, and we hope you'll join us on Thursday for the USL Pro podcast.